Positive reinforcement is not a moral statement. Positive just means you add something, and reinforcement means you will get more of a behavior. In resource pressure, a resource is something the dog wants, such as food, praise, or play. The pressure aspect is the dog will put in effort to get the resource. They attempt to figure out how to get it. The dog is working for the resource, so the resource has to be compelling to the dog. They have to want it enough to work for it. So if you're using kibble and you're in a high distraction environment, you're in competition with the environment and it's not going to be as compelling. Dogs are going to choose for themselves if a resource is compelling enough to work for it. You don't get to tell them. And this is why when people are trying to use only positive reinforcement, they tend to need higher and higher value food rewards. The food rewards are in competition with the environment. There's no other kind of pressure being used, and the handler's only option is to switch to the primo stuff. A much more effective way to ensure a dog will be motivated to listen to you without needing to carry hot dogs on the trail is to add in techniques from the other quadrants of operant conditioning. If you're stuck on just food rewards and never correct the dog and never use any kind of other pressure, you're really limiting your ability to get your message across. If you use a variety of techniques, the dog will much more easily figure out what you want, which relieves stress and miscommunication for both of you. Let's talk about types of positive reinforcement. Toys and play are a type of positive reinforcement. You can add in throwing a ball. You can add in tug as a reward for the dog performing a behavior. Another type of positive reinforcement is interactions with people. That could be you talking to the dog, giving them eye contact, touching them, and with interactions, you need to look at it through the dog's mind. There are surely times that you're rewarding dogs for things by interacting with them that you wouldn't want to reward them for. On the other hand, if you're giving a dog affection or attention, they might feel like that's more like pressure, something that they want to turn off. They might not see it as a reward. With interaction, if you lay it on too much, a dog will tend to tune you out. Chit-chatting with a dog and being overly affectionate, doting over them, is not part of a leadership persona. The cool thing about interaction is you always have it on hand. But to be able to use it most effectively, you can cut out the unnecessary interactions. That will give it more value. Whatever habits there are where you're interacting with the dog and they're probably seeing it as positive reinforcement for things that you don't really want to reinforce, try to cut those out as much as possible. Another type of positive reinforcement that can be very powerful is food. Most dog walkers don't incorporate enough food rewards in their services, and they're really making their jobs a lot harder than it needs to be. There are several reasons why food is a unique reward and why it should be incorporated into your services if at all possible. One reason is you can fake your mood with food. If you're not in the mood to be like psyched and energetic, you can still use food to show the dog how much you really like what they're doing. You can vary the amount of food to communicate a different message. You could give one treat, or you can deliver a whole jackpot, a small handful of food. You can deliver multiple treats in a row to keep their attention while they build duration. You can give a treat to the dog when they're in a sit or a down, so they'll learn to hold the position. Or you can have them move to get it, which helps build motivation. You can move your hand and have them move their body to get the treat. You can also throw it on the ground, and you can even throw it in a certain direction. You can be very precise in your reward delivery. If you have multiple dogs, you can specifically reward the one who's doing the good thing. And you can use the same exact techniques for delivering the food, but can change the reward by changing the food. It allows for more variety in that way as well. And that's why using food rewards for positive reinforcement can be so versatile and valuable. There is just so much you can do with it and so much control you have over it, which expands your vocabulary with the dog and clarifies your message. When you do positive reinforcement, there's almost always a delay between the behavior you want the dog to repeat and the delivery of the reward. To bridge this gap so the dog understands what they're being rewarded for, it's best to use a reward marker such as yes or a clicker. That way, you can communicate to the dog the specific behavior you liked. Say the reward marker at the time the dog does the behavior, and then deliver the reward. The word yes means success. It means that they completed the task and they are released from the task and they can move to get the reward. So if they are in a sit and you say yes, that means they're allowed to get out of the sit. You can use this release as an opportunity to build their motivation by having them move to get the reward. If you want the dog to keep doing that behavior for building duration, use the reward marker good. For good, for building duration, you have to deliver the treat directly to the dog. For example, if the dog is in a sit and you say good, you don't want them to come out of the sit to get the treat. You'll bring the treat to them while they stay in the sit. If you are consistent in your distinct uses of yes and good, then your dog will understand that yes is exciting and a release, and good is stabilizing, and that both words mean that they're doing the right thing and indicate positive reinforcement. A dog understanding these separate concepts is a big asset in your ability to shape their behavior. We can look at positive reinforcement through the order of operations of behavior, then marker, then reward. There are several ways to get the behavior. One is in response to a cue, whether a verbal command or a gesture, so you're teaching the dog that their interpretation of your communication was accurate. They could also do the behavior in their natural actions. Maybe you want to build eye contact. So if the dog looks into your face just on their own, with no prompting from you, there, they did the behavior. You can mark and reward that to reinforce it and get more eye contact. This technique is called free shaping. Lastly, the dog could try to guess what you want them to do to earn the reward, which is called volunteering. Sometimes people see a dog volunteering a behavior and they think that the dog figured it out. Teaching that thing is done and we can move on to the next goal. But assuming the dog isn't being demanding or rude, it's a really big deal to notice and reward when dogs are volunteering good behaviors for you. You're showing the dog that you're speaking the same language and that they're figuring out the right stuff. It shows them that it's worthwhile to try to impress you. They're putting in effort, and if you reward that effort, you are acknowledging it and encouraging it. In the order of operations, be sure to not jumble it up. Wait until the dog performs the behavior or is making incremental improvements toward the target behavior before you mark. Don't accidentally mark your anticipation that they'll do the behavior. Make sure you separate out the marker from the reward by a half a second or more so the dog can understand that they got the reward because of the marker and the marker came because of the behavior. You have some time between when you say the marker word and when you deliver the reward. For example, if the dog surprises you by doing something great, that can work. Mark the behavior and then go get the reward. In real life, we want the dog to listen to us even when we don't have treats right at hand. We can teach this concept to the dog by putting the treats somewhere else and having the dog work for us and then delivering the reward. That way, they can see that if they listen well, even when we don't have a reward right on hand, they can still get rewarded. In this exercise, you put the reward somewhere else, off your person. The dog does the behavior, you mark yes or good, and then you get the reward and you deliver it. Delivery of the reward can be delayed quite a while as long as you're verbally marking the moment that they did the thing that you liked. If you mark yes, you can go get the ball, you can get the treat. The main consideration in terms of reward delay is you don't want the dog to move on to something else mentally. Ideally, after you say the reward marker, you want them to be with you mentally until they get the reward. They should be anticipating the reward. Otherwise, if there's too long of a delay and they move on to something else, then when you do deliver the reward, you're reinforcing the wrong thing. When a dog is first figuring out that good and yes mean they get a reward, you'll need to make the delay between marker and reward pretty short. They're probably used to moving on to something else, and you want to be sure that you're rewarding the thing that you want to reward. Once they really understand good and yes, It's easier to have a delay between the marker and the reward. The dog knows those words mean something good is on the way, so they're less likely to move on to something else. If you do miss a reward delivery, if the dog moves on to something else mentally or behaviorally in between the marker and the reward, that's okay. Just let it go. You don't want to reward the wrong behavior. The key to a solid understanding of communication is repetition, repetition, repetition. So you missed that one, and that's fine. Just try to have better timing next time and do more reps to solidify the concept. One way to improve your timing with positive reinforcement is to move your treat pouch to the same side as the dog. One really subtle example of rewarding the wrong behavior is when you're trying to build duration in heel position walking. The dog goes into heel position, the handler marks good, but when the handler delivers the reward, the dog moves out of heel position to get it. The dog moves in front of the handler's feet or jumps up. Remember, when building duration with the word good, you need to bring the treat to the dog. Having the treat pouch on the same side as the dog can help with this a lot. Another way to improve your timing is to work on your observation skills. Sharpen your eye to observing small details about the dog's body language. In sports, there's a term telegraphing, which is when you unintentionally alert your opponent to your immediate intentions. When a boxer is about to throw a punch, they may move their body to set up. That's one reason why boxers move around constantly, because they're trying to mask their intentions. Dogs almost always telegraph their intentions. When people say a dog did something out of nowhere, what is really going on is the viewer just doesn't have a keen eye for the dog's body language. The dog is telling you its feelings and intentions. It might be subtle, but if you can sharpen your eye to those signals, then your timing can be 1 or 2 seconds earlier, which will make a big difference. Like people, dogs communicate differently, and they have slightly different meanings behind what they say. Where one dog may give a lot of body language communication, another might not. It helps to understand general dog communication, plus each dog's communication as an individual.
If this video helped you, please like and subscribe. Share it with other dog walkers. Also, check out our Patreon, where you can sign up for even more course materials and plug in to a supportive community of skilled professional dog walkers and Canine Cred fans.